Without further ado, my name is Dani Kiani and I'm from the Hat Collective, powered by Hat. The Hat Collective educates the next generation of advertising creative professionals by creating a collaborative learning community by students for students. You can find out more information at our website at hatcollective.co.uk or across our social media platforms. So as said, today is our first Hat Collective event, so we thank you very much for coming. We will be delving into how to get your foot through the door in advertising and public relations. I'd like to, before we start, say a massive thank you to John Gordon-Saker and Jane Jarvis from the History of Advertising Trust, who, without their enthusiasm and backing of this initiative, the Hat Collective wouldn't exist. You'll hear from our panel about their personal journeys of landing their first jobs, lessons learned along the way, and tips they'd give future grads to help smooth the transition to the world of work. We will open the floor. For questions at the end, so you can ask away. If you have any questions during the panel, please do write them down, or alternatively, if you do not wish to ask but want your question asked, you can personally message me or write your questions in the chat box and they will be answered later. And without further ado, I guess it's time to dive in. So I am here today with Zubeir Bheekharry, Senior Biddable Account Executive at OMD UK, and Afsune Rezaei, Senior Creative Copywriter, at 33, who both graduated from their degrees in Advertising and Public Relations in 2018, and Nikola Verespejova, who also graduated from her degree in Advertising and Public Relations in 2018, and is also a marketing executive at HLB International. Thank you all for joining me today. And I guess it's time for us to delve into our questions. So we shall move on. So I guess our first question to ease in really is, and this is to all of you, but we'll start with Zubeir, is what does a typical day at your job look like for you?
Thank you for the introduction, Danny. Hi, everyone. So a typical day for me, it's always hectic, I can tell you that for sure. But the first thing I would do is just sort out through my emails from the last time I logged on, which would be the previous day, from whether that's 5:30, 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, but just sort through my emails and have a to-do list. That really helps kind of plan my day and plan my week as well, just so I can, prioritize the most urgent tasks that needs to be done for that day or the next day. But that really kind of gives me a structure. A lot of my work involves campaign optimizations. So part of my role is to run campaigns across social and search channels. So anything that's live at the moment, we'll need to kind of go through the campaigns, see whether we're spending the budget, see if we're hitting our KPIs, and look at any ways to improve performance. Another thing that involves in my day-to-day is a response to brief. Working across a client like McDonald's. So by the way, I work on McDonald's as my client full-time. So I don't work on any other clients just because McDonald's is so big. So it requires all of my time. But working on a client like McDonald's, there's always a new brief coming in. So we'll have to work on a response to that, whether that's looking at what kind of budget we'll need, what platforms we'll be running across. So we'll put all of that in a deck and then pitch it to the client. And another task, which is pretty much every day, there's always a call in the diary with the client to go over reporting, to go over performance, and then grading us as to whether we're hitting our KPIs or not, and what we're doing to ensure that we're delivering the results that we said we would. So it's always hectic, but it is quite fun. And I just saw a question from Kasia, is that your first job or current job? So this is my current job, but it is my second job in the industry.
Thank you so much for answering that, Zubeir. Just a reminder, we will answer all the questions at the end, so please do write it down. And no, it's fine, it's fine. I just thought I'd mention it now, but it was a good question to ask. But yes, if you do have questions, anyone in the audience, please do leave them for the end. And that's also to my panelists as well, in case they want to answer them. But yes, that's fine. Thank you so much for answering that, Zubeir. How about you, Nikola?
Thanks. Well, hello, everyone. It's very similar to Zubeir, actually, although we work in different industries. I also start my day with just like going through the admin and emails and going through like my to-do list, making sure that the top priorities are being addressed as they need to. And then generally I reserve my lunchtime for meetings, because I do work with people not only from marketing, but from a whole lot of range of people from across the world. So the lunchtime seems to be like a good opportunity to catch up with the different time zones. So I tend to do that during the lunch, and then in the afternoon I tend to focus more on like the creative work. And so in the morning I would find out that tomorrow I need to submit some feedback for our designers. So I would sit down and then go through whatever they created, make sure that I got the feedback ready for them so they can continue the work and things like that.
Thank you. And then I guess it's on to Afi.
Yeah, hi, I'm Afi. So my first job in the industry was actually at 33, but in the social team. And then after a few months, there was a position opening in the creative team. So I kind of popped my hand up and said, could I have a crack at interviewing for it? So I did, and I got the job. And it's been about 2.5 years later. And a typical day in my job as a copywriter is that I will firstly check my schedule. So when you're in the creative team, you usually have a traffic manager who kind of acts as your team's PA. So she manages your schedule and manages the kind of projects that you will work day to day. So I'll kind of check my schedule, see if I'm working on something new or if I'm continuing to work on what I was working on the day before. And it ranges. So I could be working by myself, writing copy for a new website for one of our clients, or I could be spending the day with an art director, conceptualizing ideas for content, for films, or for full campaigns, or new employer brands for our clients. And then with me, it's kind of wherever the meetings can fit, they will fit. I'm not really made to sit at my desk for lunch. I really value like my lunchtime walks. I think it's really important for things like refreshing your mind and kind of stimulating your creativity. So I try to kind of slot my meetings in where I can. And then once I've kind of got my creative brief from the account managers, that's when I'll kind of crack on and just start writing or start coming up with the ideas and putting them into decks, presenting them to clients and developing as we go until they kind of come to life.
And thank you for answering that, Afi. And that was a wonderful way to end that as well. You can clearly tell you're a copywriter. As you can see today, we're really lucky. We have very varied panel. Oh, we've got somebody who wants to come into them. There we go. So yes, thank you for answering that. So I guess the next question is, and this is open to anybody who'd like to answer it first, of what inspired you to study advertising and PR in the first place?
Well, I could start with this one. For me, it wasn't anything that I planned on doing. It was really just a matter of searching in Google the nearest university to my home. But then, you know, I kind of find out that it happened just by accident, but it was that serendipitous moment when, you know, all my creativity and skills, everything was just, I was able to channel through all of that. And you know, during those years, I just came to realization that it was really the right thing for me to do, although it just happened by accident.
No, thank you for answering that. To be honest, if I interject into that myself, I was going down a completely different route with my degree. And then one day I did some research and realized, oh, actually, advertising and PR could be quite interesting for me. But I'm sure that's not the same for everyone. Not everyone just randomly went, oh, maybe that kind of thing, or what was close by and stuff. But what about you guys, Afi and Zubeir?
I can go next. So I think part of me also feels the same way as you guys. Like, it wasn't, oh, I really want to study advertising and PR, but I kind of knew that I wanted to study something in media. So there was a lot of research like broadcasting or media studies or filmmaking, etc. But I think when I got to that university level and I was flicking through all the courses, I saw advertising specialist. And I thought maybe this would be a good idea, because I always kind of like wanted to, whenever I saw an ad on TV, I just thought, oh, that's really cool. Like, imagine being part of that project. Like, you know, whether you came up with the idea or you're part of like the post-production or the pre-production, where you get to travel around the world, go to another country and like shoot the video or whatever. And I thought maybe advertising specialist might give me that opportunity. Fun fact, advertising specialist was not the course for that. I quickly learned. So I did defer, and then I came back, found advertising and PR, and that sounded a lot more interesting. So thank you, Kristen, for creating that for us. And then, you know, I did the course, and then I kind of realized, like, damn, this actually is what I want to do. So knowing that I wanted to study in media definitely led to studying advertising and PR, and have to say it was a good decision.
Oh, that's really sweet. And we do love a nice dedication. I also feel the same on that. I definitely think that having really good lecturers really does make something really great as well. And what about you, Afi?
So a fun fact about me is that originally I had my heart set on being a vet. So I actually did a lot of kind of really science-based subjects during my A-levels, but I also did English, and it was my favourite subject to study. I just didn't realise that there was career opportunities in it. I thought all I could do really is maybe be an author, and was there money in that? I don't know. I am quite financially motivated, so it was kind of a factor when I was deciding what to study. At the time, I was babysitting for a woman who worked in PR, and she had very nice things in her house. So I was like, okay, cool, let's find out what this is. And that's when I kind of learned a lot through my own research about kind of the communications industry. So I did apply for what was originally the PR degree at the University of West London. And I got my offer, I accepted it, and then kind of shortly before starting the course, they had kind of meshed the advertising and the PR course together, and it made advertising and PR. And that was just kind of luck for me, because I actually ended up realizing that PR wasn't quite for me, but being a creative in advertising was. So it was kind of half knowing where my strengths laid in terms of being a good writer, but also it was by luck and fate that my course happened to change. And then, yeah, I was kind of guided along that 3-year course by Kristen, and realised that being a copywriter was what I should be doing and what I enjoy doing. So here I am.
That's wonderful, and that's really sweet. I used to want to go into the medical field myself, so I definitely do get it, and veterinary medicine is amazing, so I don't blame you whatsoever for that. So I guess our next question is, so as you all have studied advertising and public relations, at what point during your studies did you know what path you wanted to go down after graduation? So was there, for example, a certain module in your degree that maybe helped you realize this? So I will ask Nikola first to answer this.
Well, it was sort of, I think that by the 3rd year, I was very sure that design and everything, you know, visually interesting is the thing that interests me the most. And then when we had to work on our major project, I kind of I kind of realized that branding and brand itself is something that I can be really passionate about, because that's where I can, creating the brand guidelines, I can really use the skills that I had in Adobe Suite, and then, I think that was the moment when I realized that I want to focus myself on branding and brand. So by the end of my studies, I knew that I need to focus on those job titles, and also I tried to gain some more skills in terms of Photoshop or InDesign and Illustrator, so I would be really able to work with all those vector files and all of that, because even though I'm not a graphic designer and I don't need to produce like very polished work, having those skills really does give me an advantage in, creating briefs and really putting my ideas onto a screen or a paper, whatever it is. So yeah, does that answer your question?
No, that definitely answers my question. Thank you very much. And what about you, Afi?
I'm gonna sound like such a nerd, but I think so. When we were in uni, Kristen used to set us little tasks to do outside of the reading, and it was these things on like these kind of think pieces that we could all write and explore and research and think about on Blackboard. I think it was quite a long time ago. I can't remember if that's exactly what it was called, but because I was a little bit of a nerd, I took the time to do them, not all of them, but I tried my best. And there was one which was a creative writing piece, and that was when I kind of really let my skills shine to Kristen. And then that's when she kind of said in passing, I think you'd make a really good copywriter. So then when it came to doing things like the agency module and kind of creating this little group of 5 who would each take on different roles that would generally be key roles across what would be a normal functioning agency, I'd always kind of put my hand up for the creative role or the copywriter role. And then that's kind of where I learned how to finesse those skills and really adapt them for how they could be applied for like briefs and campaigns and stuff. So I think it was in like my second year that happened. So kind of like the midpoint. But I guess, yeah, before then it was just kind of dipping my toes in everything and figuring out like what I liked and what I disliked. And yeah, I think it's really important to do the things that you like, because you essentially have to do it every day at work.
That's a great answer. And I think you brought up a really good point. In first year, it's very important to dip your toes into everything, try and experience everything, so that later down the line in second and third year, you can definitely start to really notice where there are certain bits and bobs that you really enjoy, and how we should always listen into these things, because these are little telltale signs for ways we can actually kind of how we can go forward really, and how that can influence our careers. So last but not least, Zubeir as well. Was there any modules that helped you realize?
Yes, definitely. So Afi briefly mentioned it, but in our third year, we had that module called the agency. So essentially what we had to do was form our own agency and work on 3 briefs, I think. They were live briefs, so they were with from existing brands. And so Afi mentioned she always opted for the creative roles, but myself, I kind of put myself forward for like the account manager role, because I thought as the account manager, I would like kind of manage the briefs and help everyone kind of get the ideas together. But then whilst we worked on the module, we all kind of realized that we were kind of, even though we all had our own roles, but we were kind of doing a bit of everything as well. And the thing that kind of made me realize that what I wanted to do was just figuring out a way to answer that brief for the client. And I think that module definitely kind of opened my eyes to what I wanted to do. So when I started looking for jobs, it was, can I work on a client where they're always trying to look for new ways to develop the brand, whether that's to increase brand awareness or work on direct response campaigns to, I don't know, to either drive orders, drive revenue, and things like that. So just being able to kind of get a brief in front of you, understand what the brief is about and how to answer it, put all your ideas together in a deck, and then pitch it, which really helps. And that's something I have to do almost every 3-4 weeks in my current role. So definitely love that module. It was really intense though, I have to say. Like, we had 3 briefs and each of them we had to answer quite quickly, and it's pretty much a reflection of what the industry is like. You can get a brief come in last minute, and then the client expects you to answer it within 2-3 weeks, and you have to basically juggle everything that you're doing on the side and then prioritize this one to get it across the line. So that is my answer.
Fabulous. Thank you very much. It's really interesting to know what all 3 of your opinions are, because they slightly differ, but there are some similarities, which is really interesting to know. So my next question is, I know that there's a lot of degrees generally, and probably your ones as well, prepare students for working in agencies generally. And although there are many avenues that you can go down with your degree, for example, something that I wish personally I'd realized sooner. So take working in-house versus agency, for example. What's it like working in-house? So Nikola, could you answer that for me, please?
Sure, I will try. So working in-house, for me, it's great because Zubeir and Afi, you both mentioned that we had this agency model where we had to work on different briefs and essentially with different brands, different companies. And what I like about working in-house is that it might sound boring, but I work with and on just one brand, and I get this opportunity to really get passionate about this brand and grow with this company and see its, progress from point A to B, C, and so on, because we work on campaigns that we essentially we repeat them every year. So there's this opportunity to improve and add new elements to those campaigns. And, also because we are in-house, we don't necessarily have like these massive marketing teams. So you have to be very flexible. And although you would specialize in, let's say, copywriting, or in my case, brand, but we are often required to step outside of our comfort zone and, chip in with different things. So sometimes I would be asked to come up with some ideas for socials, or sometimes I would be, working on things that I don't do on day-to-day jobs. So that is really why I love working in-house versus the agency. Although I never worked in real agencies, so that would be maybe next opportunity.
Thank you very much for that. I totally get it, and I think at some point at all in everyone's careers, they should try agency versus in-house anyway, to get a kind of different flavor for everything. I did forget to mention this to you, so I'll ask this to you really quickly, but was there a preference to work in a certain type? Did you know that you were going to go and work in-house, or was it just you just graduated and was like, yeah, okay, we'll go with this kind of thing?
I guess already when I was looking for jobs, I was looking for in-house opportunities because as I said, when we were working on different briefs and different brands, I always felt like, okay, we finished this brief and I now need to switch to a different, put the different hat on, where it was exciting and all that, but I wanted to see that particular project to grow and that brand. So yeah, I was initially looking for in-house opportunities.
Oh, thank you very much for that. And to our agency folks, sorry, yes, the question's completely lost in my mind, but yes, no, what is it like working in-house? So we'll start with Afi on that one. Was there a preference to work in that way, or did it just happen to be that it was agency for you?
I've never worked in-house. I've always been even when I did my internships during uni, I always did them at agencies, and I just knew myself well, in the sense that I mean, you could call it a flaw or a blessing in disguise, but I get bored very quickly. And I liked the idea of being a little bit of like a juggler. So I love that I can kind of come to work one day and write for a client like Tinder or KFC, and then 2 days later I kind of put my more kind of corporate hat on to write for a law firm or a tech, more like kind of techie kind of client. And I do still get that balance of being able to see my work come to life from start to finish. So usually how it works at 33, and I'm sure it works equally the same at other agencies, is that you won't have a client getting thrown around. Kind of if a copywriter starts a project with a client, they will stay on that project or be the dedicated copywriter on that account for however long, either for their whole career whilst they're at that agency, or until they kind of make a harmonious decision to say, okay, I think I've done all I can do for this account. I think it would be good to get some fresh eyes on it and kind of rotate the writers. But kind of I've got my dedicated account, so I write a lot for KFC. I was dedicated copywriter for Tinder, for EE, for kind of DCC, who are like a smart tech company. So I'm kind of like there on my revolving door, and I kind of jump between them. But I like that kind of element of kind of being a little bit of a chameleon. I think it kind of keeps me on my toes a little bit, trying to adapt to different tones of voice, and it kind of helps me refine my craft more, having to kind of learn how to write in those different styles and continuously be able to jump from one to the other, sometimes in the same day. I might be booked on half a day on KFC, then the other half a day I have to go and write for like a smart energy company. Very two different tones of voice, but it's just kind of what you learn to do, and it's what I enjoy doing. Whether or not I ever go in-house, I'm not sure. I'd have to really love, I think, like to Nicola's point about passion, I'd have to really be passionate about them. Like I'm talking like Nike levels, which is a very ambitious goal, but you never know, one day we might get there. But no, I am very happy at the moment in agency life.
Fabulous, thank you. And speaking of that passion, Zubeir, I know that you work with McDonald's as one of your main accounts, and it kind of actually sounds like you work, I'm not saying only with them, but it's one of your main things. So it's kind of a bit like a focusing on one kind of brand. But yes, no, can you tell us a bit more from your opinion about that?
No, definitely. So my first role, I was working across 9 clients, which is a lot to handle. So that was my previous agency, and then I moved to my current agency, OMD UK, to work on McDonald's, which is just one brand. So in a way, it does feel like I'm in-house, but at the same time, I'm not. I think I've kind of always preferred to work in agency life, just because you're kind of more exposed to different brands and different messages, and you can always get ideas from other places to kind of use for your current clients. So for example, at my previous role, everything was just about direct response advertising. So anything that I saw was working across another client, which I could use for this client, I would always try and bring it over and say to the client, look, I did this for such and such, and it worked really well. I really want to test it here. Are you guys on board? And then say yes. And then now at McDonald's, although, like I said, it does feel like it's in-house, but at the same time, it doesn't, just because McDonald's, it's so big. They have these different business units that they fall under. So you've got, like, for example, you've got the Savor menu at McDonald's, which has its own budget, which has its own marketing calendar. You've got Happy Meal, again, a different budget, a different marketing calendar with different goals, with different targeting and different brand manager that you speak with. So still feels like I have smaller clients under one big company. But but yeah, I definitely think I'm going to stay in agency life for a while. Like Afi mentioned and Nikola mentioned, like you definitely need to have passion if you're going to go client side. So I don't know, it will come one day, but to that point, there is also, like for myself, because I work across multiple social and search platforms, there is the opportunity to go and work media owner side. So if Snap, for example, ever hit me up and say, hey, Zub, do you want to come and work for us? I think I'll definitely say yes to that.
No, that's totally fair enough. And thank you all of you for answering that. It's really nice to get a difference in opinion there, because I used to work in-house and then I've done agency as well. So I've always been confused about, oh, which one do I prefer and such. So it's really interesting to know that actually. So my next question is, when you see, so maybe it's more for our senior, actually you're all quite senior now, positions. If somebody was when you see applications coming in for more junior roles at your place of work, what is the first thing you look for in a candidate? So I guess I could ask, we'll go with Afi on this one.
Sure. So I have actually been looking at CVs at the moment for hiring a junior copywriter. So this is fresh in my mind. I go straight for the portfolio. I think portfolios are, I'm not sure if I don't think they're as significant for kind of the account manager roles and like the media roles as they are creative. But I care more about the ideas and the creative outputs and approaches, and how you think and how you write, and seeing that passion and that hunger come across in a portfolio than I do kind of where you worked while you were a student, because I don't believe in judging people based on like kind of who they are and where they're from and what they did all those many years ago. If right now you've got that hunger and that thirst and you can show that you've got good ideas, which is very important in creative. I always say that, yes, you can know the difference between there, and there, but if you don't have good ideas, it's tricky. So yeah, I definitely go for the portfolio and then the CV. That's just how I approach it, being creative, but I'm sure that Nikola and Zubeir might have a slightly different approach to me.
Thank you. And I do think in that case, we will go to Zubeir next actually to answer that.
Yeah, so I've had to actually look at a few CVs and I don't go to the portfolios. Like I have a portfolio myself, which we had to set up when we was at uni, but I've never had to look at someone's portfolio to see whether they're the right fit for a biddable exec role, simply because what we do kind of revolves around the evolving landscape of our industry. So because we work across the social and search platforms, they're always evolving. There's always new products that they offer to brands to grow their businesses. So the first thing I look at is kind of just like, do they have a basic understanding of how these platforms work? Not from a technical skills, because I believe technical skills of these platforms can be learned on the spot, on the job, but more of, do they understand how, for example, Facebook can help a brand increase brand awareness, or how does Facebook help a brand drive online revenue? So things like that. It doesn't have to be proper in depth. It just needs to be a basic understanding of it. And also, do they have an understanding or even experience of using data to answer briefs? Because a lot of what we do now revolves around first-party data or third-party data to improve performance. So that would be my recommendation.
Fabulous, thank you. There's definitely a difference in opinion here, both very valid, very interesting to know. Nikola, do you have anything to add to that?
No, I don't. Actually, I haven't been in a position looking for a junior position because we work in-house, we don't grow our team that much, you know, so right now we are at the stage where we're actually looking to growing the team, but looking for more senior people. So for that, I can say that, you know, flexibility and teamwork are the key ingredients. And I would say that that's also something that probably was a deal breaker when they hired me, because they needed someone who would be able to work within the team and offer that helping hand and in, you know, day-to-day tasks and so on. So
no, that's fine. Thank you very much for that. So actually, I think actually you guys have pretty much hit the nail on the head with a lot of my questions there and your answers. So that's very appreciated. So we'll go with this one. So if you could give current students 2 top tips to make their search for their transition into the first job easier, what would they be? So we shall start with Zubeir on this one.
That's a very good question. So the first one would be, whilst you're still at uni, to not say no to any opportunity that comes your way. And the reason why I say that is because one of the things that I found tricky when I was trying to get a job, when I was trying to get my first job, is that a lot of people would kind of look at your experience, and they would always say, "Oh, we really like your, you know, your attitude, your this and that, but unfortunately, you lack the experience that we need." So whenever there was an opportunity to get involved, whether that's, you know, whether you start freelancing, if you're a copywriter and you just freelance copywriting while you're at uni, or you reach out to a brand that you came across and say, "Hey, can I work for free? Can I do a free internship for 2 weeks, 3 weeks?" Just so you can get some sort of experience in the industry. And then when you do go into an interview or you come across a job that you really like, you can use that experience to talk about, you know, why you fit the role. So that's definitely number one. The other one would be, your first offer should never be your only choice. So a lot of like graduates, and I think I kind of fell into that myself, is that when we finish uni and we want to get a job because we want to earn, we want to start making use of our degrees, we start searching for jobs, and then, you know, we get recruiters come our way, and then especially if we struggle to get a job, as soon as we get that first offer, we kind of jump on it. I think that's a mistake that a lot of people make. So your first offer should never be your only choice, because at the end of the day, you should always research the company that you could potentially work at, and learn about them, learn about their values, their culture, personal growth, professional growth that they could offer you, and whether they're the right fit for you. Because if they're not the right fit for you, then you definitely shouldn't be working there.
Thank you so much. And that's a really, really good point about not taking the first offer straight off the cuff, because it's so true. I think a lot of graduates now are starting to get contacted by recruiters, and it's that sort of season. And people are very quick to go, oh, actually, maybe I should pick this. But it's really important, as you said, to really research into a company's culture and see if you're a good fit for them. Because at the end of the day, you're not just interviewing to be in that company. They're interviewing you, but you should also interview them for yourself. Anyway, so with that, we will go to Afi to answer that next.
So I would say, I mean, it's tricky because I think things like LinkedIn and Indeed are great platforms, but from my experience, I think a lot of agencies will advertise on their own websites before they kind of go out onto those jobs boards. So I think if you want to be one of the first people to kind of land in their inbox, I think identify some agencies, and this is me coming from an agency perspective, because as I said, I've never worked in-house, but identify some agencies that you love in terms of not just the work they do, but their values, their culture, their clients. You know, there is a sense of, for me, I like working for clients that have purpose, not just kind of the ones that think about profit. like in the past, I've had to kind of balance my moral compass a little bit when it came to writing for things like missile defense companies and stuff like that. So I think be clear on kind of what your values are and finding agencies and places that align to those, and just kind of keep them on your radar, like follow them on Instagram, follow them on LinkedIn, because usually they will post about the job on their LinkedIn before putting a job ad on LinkedIn as well. And yeah, just like keep an eye on them in terms of like what their opportunities are. And I think to Danny's point about kind of you're interviewing them as much as they're interviewing you, is use that opportunity that you have with them to have a conversation, to again dig deeper into what are your values, what are your what's your culture like kind of know what you want to get from them. Do you want to work somewhere that offers flexible working? Do you want to have the option to work from home a couple of days a week? Or do you care more about getting access to a weekly fruit basket at work, which is what I used to get? Or do you want to work somewhere that's dog friendly? Or do you know what I mean? Just kind of think about what you want, because even though it's your first job, like Zubeir said, you shouldn't settle. So yeah, get your priorities in order, and then that should hopefully help you find where you want to go, rather than taking the first one that comes your way, which you might realize in the future that was not right for you.
Fantastic. And last but not least, Nikola, what is your 2 top tips?
Well, to add on to everything that Zubeir and Afi said, I think it's also very important to grow your network, you know, to really go out there, participate in every single event that you can. And, you know, even it might not be the most interesting and super exciting event, but you might meet the people that could in the future introduce you to someone who knows about great job opportunity. And, you know, you can also learn a lot of things from just people that you meet there. And then my second advice would be that you don't have to always look for like fancy job titles, whether it's on LinkedIn or Indeed, but you know, even like, for example, with my job title, it says marketing executive. I would never, you know, click on this and apply for the job saying marketing executive. But then when you read through the description and really you can find there things that might interest you, like, for example, in my case, brand, you know. So really just look for descriptions and jobs, not just their job titles, and grow your network.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for answering that. And thank you very much for just being my panel today. You've answered brilliantly. And I feel like we really got some good insights into how to really secure your first job and good hints and tips. So now we shall move on to our Q&A. So the floor is now open to our audience if they would like to ask any questions. If you have any, we have a rule here. So if you want to unmute yourself and ask, otherwise I now see that we've got some questions in the chat box. You're welcome to pop them in the box and I will ask them. So I don't hear anybody muting, but I do see a question. So we'll ask this question first from Kasia, which is, adding to Danny's questions, looking for a first industry job is really intimidating. Seeing all these requirements makes me feel a bit overwhelmed, as I don't consider myself an expert yet. Honestly, I feel the same. Often agencies look for senior positions, executives and managers. How do I gain more confidence to apply and just go out there? This is open to anybody to answer.
I'll take this one. So firstly, my first job in social, I was a social media executive. So don't be intimidated by the title. Usually executive roles are actually made to be entry-level roles. And to your point about kind of being intimidated and feeling like you're not confident or an expert, I read something once that has always stuck with me, which I'm going to share now. And it's a really interesting statistic that when you compare, and this isn't a dig at men, this is just a statistic. So usually women will kind of get hard on themselves for not meeting 10 out of 10 requirements, and they won't apply for a job. Men, on the other hand, if they only reach, let's say, 6 out of 10, they will apply, and usually they will at least get through to the interview stage, right? So I think don't feel like you have to hit all of the requirements, because there's always room to learn. And also, like, you just got to throw your hat in the ring. If I hadn't have put my hand up when I saw that there was a copywriter position going on at 33, they probably wouldn't have thought, oh, let's get Afi to do it. You have to really, you know, put your hand up and use your voice. And, you know, you might not be an expert with 10 years of working in the industry experience, but you're an expert in the sense that you've studied this for 3 years. So I think also give yourself a little bit of credit. And I think just being prepared as well, and knowing how to kind of gas yourself up a little bit, I think is what you have to kind of do. But yeah, I think that kind of statistic that I read is kind of telling, that don't feel like you have to meet 10 out of 10 requirements. Even if you meet 6 or 7, just go for it.
That's really lovely advice. And we've got a thank you from Kasia for answering that. Did anybody else want to add anything to that before I ask you? Oh, we've got another question, but did anyone want to add to that at all?
Yeah, I'd like to add to that. So when I first interviewed for my first paid social exec role, I had no prior technical experience of what the job required. But I practiced interviewing the questions that I think they would ask me. I spoke to a bunch of friends that I had in the industry saying, hey, what kind of questions are they going to ask me? How can I answer them? This is my answer. Can you help me improve it? And then they'd be like, yep, change this, change that, say this, say that, talk about this, talk about that. So a lot of what I learned, a lot of what I know now and that I use in my day-to-day role, I actually learned on the job. And although I didn't meet a lot of the requirements, it was just me answering the questions that the interviewers had to basically just show them that, okay, I may lack these skills or experience, but I understand the job role. I understand what needs to be done. So don't feel too overwhelmed, like you're not ready for this role because it's a fancy title, like Afi said. So, and another thing about titles is, so from like a biddable perspective, there's biddable apprentice, there's junior biddable exec, senior biddable exec, and then biddable manager. So all of these titles, they sound really fancy. Like I remember when Kristen first told us that executive just pretty much means junior, and I was like, all right, cool, I'm getting this job then. I'm not too worried. But yeah, I hope that does help.
Thank you for answering that. And honestly, I only learned that the other day myself, applying that executive is not an executive, that's actually a junior thing. And I've been out, and I graduated in 2020, so I'm like, oh wow, I didn't realize. But yes, did you have anything to add to that, Nicola? Otherwise we'll move on to the next question.
Just very quickly, I found that having a portfolio that you're really proud of also boosts confidence quite a lot, actually. And also having that portfolio with you on an interview is a great talking point, and you can steer the conversation the way that you want the conversation to go to. So definitely show what you've done, and you might not be the greatest I don't know, copywriter, whatever it is, but you will get there eventually.
I do agree with that wholeheartedly. I've suffered my own imposter syndrome all the time with these things, which does lead greatly into one of our questions. And just saying, we're running short on time, so if anybody has any questions, we have time for one more after this, and that is, I'm afraid, it. So one question comes from Adriana, who says that, how did you overcome the imposter syndrome once you found a job, if you had that any at all? To anyone to answer.
I can take this one. So I did feel like when I first started the job that a lot of times I would get asked to complete this task and I didn't know how to do it, and I felt like I shouldn't say I don't know how to do it because it would make me look bad. But what I've kind of realized throughout my time in the industry is it's okay to not know something. It's okay to just put your hand up and be like, I don't know how to do this. but what I will do is go and learn and figure it out and come back to you. And once you do that, it kind of shows the person that's asking you to do a task that you're self-aware, and you know that just because you don't know something, you have the ability to go and overcome it. And two, it makes them trust you even more, because you're open to your vulnerabilities. You're open to share that, you know, if you're not good at something, but you're okay to admit it, because at the end of the day, they do want the best out of you. They do want the best for you as well. So that's kind of how I look at it.
Sorry, mute my own self. Did anybody want to add to that? Otherwise, we've got one more question. Okay, and then our last, but certainly not least, final question is, did you take a master's, and why or why not?
I can take this one. I didn't take master's, although I'm thinking about it, but probably way down into the future, because I think that to grow in my career, it's more important to get that experience rather than getting masters. So once, I don't know, maybe in 2-3 years, once I'm in that, I don't know, hopefully managerial kind of role, then I'll be thinking about going for masters to get perhaps also a refresher and you know, progress somewhere else. But definitely you don't need one to start your career. And I think that at least that's what I found out.
Yeah, just to echo that, I also didn't do a master's, but it is something that's on my mind, and I'm not sure when I'll do it. But for me, I kind of wanted to make use of everything that I learned in the last 3 years and just kind of get out there and, you know, just start growing my career and develop my skills. But definitely doing masters in the future is something that's on my mind.
That's wonderful. Thank you very much. To start your networking off, to everyone, that's the end of our questions, but to start your networking off, our panelists are all happy to be reached through LinkedIn. And I would like to just say a massive thank you to our great panel speakers today for imparting their wonderful advice, and our audience, of course, for being here today and giving us some wonderful questions. Again, if you'd just like to know more hints and tips, you can check out our website at hackcollective.co.uk with our weekly blogs and industry blogs, which feature some of our wonderful panelists here, actually. You can also check out our social media platforms for more great content. So thank you very much for coming today, and I will stop recording now, just so that's out of it. But yes, thank you everyone for attending, and all have a wonderful evening.